Our next guest is on a winning streak with 6 consecutive New York Times bestsellers, including Tuesdays with Morrie, the best-selling memoir of all time. Mitch Albom's latest book is a novel that touches a particular chord with him as a music lover and no doubt will resonate with millions of readers as well. Let's find out more about the magic strings of Frankie Presto from the author, Mitch Albom. Great to see you, Mitch. How are you?
I'm fine, Meryl. Thank you.
Well, we're delighted to have you with us today. Tell us about Frankie Presto. He's a really interesting character.
Yeah, it's the biggest thing I've ever attempted. Frankie Presto is a fictional guitar player, the greatest guitar player to ever walk the earth. And he suffers a lot as a child. He becomes an orphan, and sort of as a payback for that, he's granted this magic guitar when he's 9 years old that has these 6 magic strings that can change people's lives with his playing. And over the course of his life, whenever he finds himself in one of these situations, he's able to play his music and actually change somebody's fate, and the string turns blue and then kind of disappears, and so he goes to 5 and 4 and 3 and 2 and 1, and we sort of see all the people that he influences over the course of his life. But while that's going on and he's a fictional magical character, the backdrop is really music. So everything else in the backdrop is real. So he travels with Duke Ellington as a kid, and he ends up in Elvis Presley's band when Elvis is just starting out and takes over for Elvis one night, and everybody thinks he's Elvis. He plays with Little Richard, and he meets Hank Williams, and he's at Woodstock. So the backdrop is very real, including a stretch of time where he's actually in Nashville when he's about 17 or 18 years old. So it's interesting to be able to talk to you about it because Nashville has such amazing musical history.
Yeah, we always say there's always a Nashville connection. Can you tell us more about that?
He gets there when he's about 17 or 18, and he's sort of taken care of by an old blues man who tries to get him into the on the Ryman Auditorium, you know, the Grand Ole Opry, and something happens the night that he's supposed to go, and his mentor sort of has a heart attack, and he never gets a chance to play at the Grand Ole Opry, and then he sort of just fades away and goes down to New Orleans, then becomes a big rock star himself. So people will recognize a lot of the real stuff that went on in the early 50s in Nashville in the book.
It's really fascinating. One of the themes in the book is the idea that everyone's in a band, and that really resonates with you, and I think with all of us. Talk about that.
Well, I've played in bands as a professional musician. That was my passion and love before I became a writer. And there's a dynamic in a band, you know, where somebody's the lead singer and somebody has to keep the rhythm and everybody has a role. But the truth is, that's how life is too. We all join bands in life. Just some of them play music. Your TV station crew, that's a band. Your workplace is a band. Your family is a band. Your school friends are a band. And everybody sort of has that one role. But in those roles, that's how we affect one another. And it's the same thing when you play music with a band. So I was able to get a lot of real-life musicians to take part in this book because of that theme. So people like Tony Bennett, Wynton Marsalis, Lyle Lovett, Darlene Love, Paul Stanley from Kiss, all these people let me kind of write as them as attendees at Frankie's funeral at the end of his life, and they're all recounting stories where they encountered Frankie. He was in their band for 5 minutes, so they found him on an island, he was hiding in a monastery, and all these wonderful stories from real-life musicians who then went out and helped me make a soundtrack for the thing. So we actually have a soundtrack for the book. I don't think it's ever been done before, of fictional songs that Frankie created that are now real songs by some of those artists. And there are even videos on the internet now of people like Burt Bacharach crying about how he met Frankie and now he's gone, and Paul Stanley talking about when Frankie auditioned for Kiss, and you know, it's as if you can't tell the difference between reality and fiction, but it was part of the fun of meshing the real music world with the character.
It's kind of taken on a life of its own. It's a fascinating story. Thanks so much for being with us today.
It's my pleasure, Meryl. Thanks for having me on.